High above the noise of modern Rome, the scooters buzzing through narrow streets, the hum of conversation echoing from ancient piazzas, there rises a hill that has witnessed the story of civilization unfold. This is the Capitoline Hill, or Campidoglio, one of the legendary 7 hills upon which ancient Rome was built. It has seen kings crowned, gods worshipped, and empires crumble into dust. In the earliest days of Rome, this hill was sacred ground, the seat of the mighty temple of Jupiter, Optimus Maximus, the largest and most revered temple in the Roman world. From its summit, the Romans once believed they were closest to the gods themselves. Below, in the valleys of the Roman Forum, the people gathered to debate, to celebrate victories, and to mourn their losses. Every stone on this hill has been touched by history, by senators, emperors, and ordinary citizens alike. But the Capitoline Hill is not just an archaeological site or a relic of the past, it is a living symbol of Rome's endurance, of how this city continuously transforms, layer by layer, without ever losing its soul. And at the heart of this transformation stands one of the greatest treasures of human culture, the Capitoline Museums, the oldest public museum in the world, founded in the 15th century. The museums turned what was once the center of divine and political power into a temple of art and knowledge. Open to all. Here, marble statues tell the stories of heroes and gods. Ancient inscriptions whisper the secrets of long-lost empires. Every gallery and courtyard reveals another chapter in the tale of a city that has shaped the entire Western world. Today, we begin a journey through these remarkable halls. Through time itself, we'll uncover the origins of the museum, explore the masterpieces within its walls, and learn how this extraordinary place became more than a museum, it became the very heartbeat of Rome's memory. Welcome to the Capitoline Museums, where the past never truly dies. It simply waits to be rediscovered. Our story begins in the year 1471. During the height of the Renaissance, a time when Rome was awakening from the shadows of the Middle Ages, the city was rebuilding. Artists were flourishing, and knowledge that had long been forgotten was being rediscovered. At the center of this revival stood a pope named Sixtus IV, a man determined to restore Rome's ancient glory and re-establish it as the cultural capital of the world. Pope Sixtus IV believed that the treasures of the ancient world should no longer be hidden away in private collections or locked within the walls of churches. He envisioned something revolutionary, that the art and heritage of Rome should belong to its people. And so, in a gesture that would change the course of history, he donated a remarkable collection of ancient bronze statues to the citizens of Rome. Among these bronzes were some of the most precious remnants of the classical world. The she-wolf of Rome, the legendary symbol of the city itself, a delicate statue of a boy pulling a thorn from his foot, and the imposing Camillus, a Roman priest in a graceful stance. Each piece had survived centuries of war, neglect, and decay, yet still carried the unmistakable spirit of ancient Rome. But what made this act so extraordinary wasn't just the value of the artworks. It was what they represented. For the first time in history, a collection of priceless antiquities was made accessible to the public, not to kings, not to the clergy, not to the wealthy elite, but to the people of Rome themselves. This simple, yet profound gesture gave birth to a new idea, the public museum. At that moment, art ceased to be the possession of the few and became the shared heritage of humanity. The Capitoline Hill, once the heart of Rome's ancient power, was reborn as a sanctuary of knowledge, where citizens could stand face to face with the greatness of their past. Word of the PayPal. Donations spread quickly through the city. Artists, scholars, and travelers began to climb the hill to see these treasures for themselves. Standing beneath the Roman sky, surrounded by the remains of temples and palaces, they gazed upon the bronzes, symbols of endurance, beauty, and identity. It was as if Rome, long asleep, had finally opened its eyes again. That single act by Pope Sixtus IV did more than preserve the past. It redefined humanity's relationship with art. It taught the world that culture is not meant to be hoarded, but shared. And with that, the Capitoline Museums were born, not just as a collection of ancient relics, but as a living testament to the power of memory and the generosity of human vision. Long before the Capitoline Museums stood on this hill, long before Michelangelo's Grand Piazza or the Renaissance revival of Rome, this very place was already considered sacred. To the ancient Romans, the Capitoline Hill, or Mons Capitolinus, was the center of the world both politically and spiritually. It was here that the city's fate was believed to rest in the hands of the gods. At the summit once stood the temple of Jupiter, Optimus Maximus, the most magnificent and revered temple in ancient Rome, dedicated to the supreme deity Jupiter, along with his divine companions, Juno and Minerva. This temple was the heart of Roman religion and the symbol of imperial strength. Its massive columns and golden roof could be seen for miles, shining in the Mediterranean sun, a constant reminder that Rome ruled not only by might, but by divine favor. From this sacred spot, the Romans looked out upon the Forum Romanum, the bustling center of civic life. Below, senators debated, Generals paraded in triumph, and citizens gathered to witness the events that shaped their world. When victorious armies returned to Rome, they marched up the Via Sacra, ascending the hill to offer thanks to Jupiter himself. Every triumphal procession ended here, at the steps of the temple, the spiritual finish line of Roman greatness. But as centuries passed, the temple fell to ruin. Earthquakes, fires, and the fall of the Roman Empire reduced it to fragments. By the Middle Ages, the Capitoline Hill was a shadow of its former self, a quiet mound dotted with ruins, overgrown with weeds and memory. Yet the spirit of the place never disappeared. The Romans still knew that this was the Campidoglio, the symbolic heart of their city, the hill of power, law, and destiny. It was no coincidence then that when Pope Sixtus IV chose a home for his donation, the first public collection of art, he chose this hill. The decision carried profound symbolism. By placing ancient sculptures upon the Capitoline once again, he was restoring the hill's ancient purpose. Where once people had come to honor the gods, now they would come to honor human genius, beauty, and creativity. In many ways, the Capitoline Museums continued what the ancient temple began. They became a new sanctuary, not for Jupiter, but for the spirit of Rome itself. Art replaced idols, and knowledge replaced sacrifice. Yet the feeling of reverence remained the same. To stand on the Capitoline Hill, even today, is to stand at the intersection of faith and history, a place where the stones whisper the prayers of priests, the footsteps of senators, and the dreams of artists who sought to resurrect the glory of the past. The hill that once celebrated the gods now celebrates humanity, and in that transformation lies the true genius of Rome. By the early 1500s, the Capitoline Hill was a place of faded glory. The once sacred summit was littered with ruins, crumbling stones, overgrown weeds, and fragments of temples that had long since fallen silent. Yet for the people of Rome, this hill still held an invisible power, a memory of greatness that refused to die. And it was here that a new vision would emerge, one that would unite the spirit of ancient Rome with the brilliance of the Renaissance. That vision came from Michelangelo, one of the greatest minds in human history. By the 1530s, Michelangelo was already a legend, sculptor of David, painter of the Sistine Chapel ceiling, architect of St. Peter's Basilica. When Pope Paul III called upon him to redesign the Capitoline Hill, Michelangelo faced a monumental challenge to transform a forgotten ruin into a symbol worthy of Rome's eternal grandeur. Michelangelo understood that this hill was no ordinary site. It was the heart of Rome, the link between its ancient majesty and its modern rebirth. So, instead of erasing the past, he built upon it. He envisioned a harmonious piazza, a masterpiece of symmetry and proportion that would reflect both order and power. The new square, known as the Piazza del Campidoglio, would be framed by elegant Renaissance palaces, each one angled slightly inward, creating the illusion of a grand, embracing space. At the center of this piazza, Michelangelo placed a single, breathtaking symbol, the bronze equestrian statue of Emperor Marcus Aurelius. The emperor sits calm, yet commanding, one hand extended in mercy, the other controlling a powerful horse midst. Unlike the rigid depictions of other rulers, Marcus Aurelius appears both strong and wise, the image of a philosopher king. This statue is more than just a masterpiece of art. It's a miracle of survival. But this one was spared because it was mistakenly believed to be a likeness of Emperor Constantine, the first Christian ruler of Rome. That misunderstanding saved it from destruction and allowed Michelangelo to use it as the beating heart of his new design. Around it, he arranged three great buildings, the Palazzo dei Conservatori on the right, the Palazzo Nuovo on the left, and behind the statue, the Senatorial Palace, which would become the seat of the Roman city government. Standing proudly on the right side of Michelangelo's Grand Piazza is the Palazzo dei Conservatori, the Palace of the Conservators. Its name comes from the Roman magistrates who once governed the city, but today it holds something far greater, the living memory of Rome carved in stone and bronze. Within its halls lie some of the most iconic symbols of the Eternal City, masterpieces that bridge myth, legend, and empire. As you step inside, the first thing that strikes you is the atmosphere, the cool echo of marble floors, the distant murmur of visitors, and the golden light filtering through tall Renaissance windows. Every corridor seems to whisper fragments of history. Every statue feels alive, as if watching over the centuries that have passed since its creation. Among the treasures that greet you, one stands above all others, the She-Wolf of Rome, or Lupa. She is small in size, yet enormous in meaning. Her bronze form is tense and alert, her head turned protectively toward the unseen danger beyond the viewer's gaze. Beneath her belly rest two infants, Romulus and Remus, the legendary founders of Rome. According to myth, the twins were abandoned on the banks of the Tiber River and left to die. But they were miraculously saved by this She-Wolf, who nursed and protected them until a shepherd discovered them. From their story, Rome was born. The sculpture itself is ancient, believed to date back to the Etruscan era. Around the 5th century BCE though, the twins were added much later during the Renaissance. Together, they form the ultimate symbol of Rome's resilience, a city born of survival, nurtured by destiny, and destined to endure. As you move deeper into the palace, the air thickens with grandeur. Here you encounter one of the most awe-inspiring sights in all of Rome, the Colossal Head of Constantine. This massive marble fragment, once part of a statue over 12 meters tall, dominates the courtyard. Only the head, hand, and a few limbs remain, but even in pieces, the statue commands reverence. Constantine's eyes are enormous, gazing eternally upward, not toward the gods of old, but toward heaven itself, symbolizing the emperor's faith in the dawn of Christianity in Rome. To stand before it is to feel small, to sense the scale not only of the statue, but of the empire it once represented. Each fragment is a relic of ambition and divinity, a reminder of how power once demanded to be immortalized in stone. Around these famous works, the Palazzo dei Conservatori holds a vast array of other treasures. Bronze tablets inscribed with ancient Roman laws, intricate mosaics from imperial villas, and portraits of statesmen whose names have long faded from memory. Even the walls themselves are works of art decorated with Renaissance frescoes celebrating the virtues of Rome's past, justice, courage, and wisdom. But what makes this building truly special is the way it connects the viewer to time itself. Here, ancient myth, imperial power, and Renaissance rebirth exist side by side, not in conflict, but in conversation. It's as if the Shiva, Constantine, and Michelangelo himself are all part of the same eternal dialogue, a story that began thousands of years ago and continues to this day. The Palazzo dei Conservatori is more than a museum wing. It's a mirror reflecting what Rome has always been, a city of legend, faith, and unbreakable endurance. Directly across from the Palazzo dei Conservatori, on the opposite side of Michelangelo's elegant piazza stands its twin, the Palazzo New, or New Palace. Despite its name, this building is no longer new. It was completed in the 17th century, more than a century after Michelangelo first imagined it. Designed in harmony with the rest of the square, the Palazzo Nuovo mirrors its older counterpart, creating a perfect symmetry, a balance between past and present, old and new, that defines the spirit of Rome itself. When you step through its doors, you enter a world of marble silence. Cool air drifts through vaulted halls, and the light falls softly on hundreds of ancient statues, each one a survivor of time. This palace is entirely dedicated to classical sculpture, the art of the Greeks and Romans, and every corner tells a story carved in stone. Perhaps the most famous of all the works housed here is the Dying Gaul. He sits upon a low pedestal, his muscular body slumped forward, his face calm yet full of pain. A fatal wound cuts across his chest, and a simple twisted torque, a Celtic necklace, hangs around his neck, marking him as a foreign warrior. This is no hero of Rome, but one of her defeated enemies, and yet, he is portrayed with dignity, bravery, and heartbreaking humanity. The sculptor, whose name is lost to time, captured something extraordinary, the quiet nobility of a man facing death. In this single statue, you can feel both the triumph and the tragedy of empire. Nearby stands another masterpiece, the Capitoline Venus, a graceful marble statue inspired by the goddess of love. She stands in a modest pose, her arms drawn close to her body as if surprised by the viewer's gaze. Her beauty is timeless, serene, delicate, and impossibly human. This statue became one of the most admired depictions of feminine form during the Renaissance and beyond, influencing countless artists across Europe. The galleries of the Palazzo Nuovo are arranged with a scholar's precision. There is the Hall of the Emperors, lined with marble busts of Rome's rulers Augustus, Trajan, Adrian, Marcus Aurelius, their expressions frozen in marble, yet each radiating authority. Facing them is the Hall of the Philosophers, where the faces of thinkers like Socrates, Aristotle, and Epicurus seem to gaze back across centuries of wisdom. Between these two halls, power and philosophy, ruler and thinker, lies the essence of Roman civilization, the balance between intellect and command, between the mind and the empire. Every statue here once adorned temples, palaces, and villas. Many were unearthed during the Renaissance, rescued from the ruins of ancient Rome. Each piece represents not only an individual, but a fragment of a world that vanished nearly 2,000 years ago, a world reborn through the hands of those who sought to preserve it. Walking through the Palazzo Nuovo is like walking through a marble dream. The faces you see are not ghosts, but echoes of humanity at its most ambitious, its most creative, and its most fragile. Here, amid the quiet grandeur, the line between art and eternity disappears. The Palazzo Nuovo completes Michelangelo's vision of the Capitoline Hill, two wings of a single idea. One celebrates the civic and political soul of Rome, the other its artistic and intellectual heart. Together, they form not just a museum, but a sanctuary of memory, a place where the ancient world still breathes. Beneath the grandeur of the Piazza del Campidoglio lies a hidden world, often overlooked by casual visitors, the Galleria Lapidaria. This long subterranean corridor quietly connects the Palazzo dei Conservatori and the Palazzo Nuovo, creating a secret artery of history that flows beneath the hill. Here, in the dimly lit space, the stones themselves speak. and every fragment tells a story older than most nations. The walls are lined with epic tombstones, inscriptions, and reliefs, some carefully restored, others still rough and weathered by centuries underground. They are remnants of daily life, public decrees, funerary dedications, and religious offerings, the voices of ordinary Romans as well as emperors. Unlike the polished statues upstairs, these artifacts are intimate. They do not command attention through grandeur. Instead, they whisper quietly, inviting the visitor to lean in, to read, to imagine the lives that once intersected with these stones. Walking through the Galleria Lapidaria is like descending into a subterranean library of Rome itself. Here, fragments of temples and public monuments sit side by side, forming a mosaic of the city's past. A broken altar carved with Latin inscriptions recalls a ceremony held millennia ago. A simple funerary stele speaks of a family's grief and devotion. Each artifact is a puzzle piece, and together they form a vast, incomplete map of life in the ancient city. The gallery also serves as a physical and symbolic bridge between the two wings of the museum. While the Palazzo dei Conservatori celebrates Rome's myths and imperial authority, and the Palazzo Nuovo showcases artistic mastery and philosophical achievement, the Galleria Lapidaria reminds visitors that all of this rests on the foundations of daily life, the reality of ordinary citizens, soldiers, and priests. There is a quiet magic here. In the soft shadows and stone corridors, the air is cooler, the echoes longer, and the past feels alive in a way that few other spaces can evoke. For a visitor who stops and listens, it is easy to imagine the Romans themselves walking these same streets, reading the same inscriptions, leaving their mark on the city for centuries to come. The Galleria Lapidaria is a reminder that history is not only found in monumental statues or grand palaces, but also in the small, often fragile fragments that survive the passage of time. It is beneath the surface, literally and metaphorically, that we can most clearly see the human story, the story that the Capitoline Museums exist to preserve. While the Capitoline Museums are often celebrated for their extraordinary sculptures, they also house a treasure trove of paintings and tapestries that reveal another side of Rome's rich cultural legacy. These works, displayed throughout carefully curated galleries, bring color, narrative, and emotion to complement the marble and bronze of the halls. As you step into these rooms, you are immediately struck by the contrast. The solidity of stone replaced by the softness of brush, the permanence of marble replaced by the fleeting immediacy of paint. Here, Renaissance and Baroque masters capture Rome in a way sculpture cannot, through light, perspective, and the human imagination. Among the most famous works is Caravaggio's dramatic depiction of religious and mythological scenes. His mastery of light and shadow, the interplay of darkness and illumination, creates a sense of tension and intimacy that pulls the viewer into the moment. Every flick of his brush reveals emotion, conflict, and the complexity of human experience. Nearby, Titian's vibrant colors breathe life into historical and allegorical subjects, while Guido Reni and Paolo Veronese add grandeur and theatricality to the galleries. Each painting tells a story of gods, emperors, saints, and mortals, and collectively they form a visual bridge from antiquity to the Renaissance, reminding viewers how Rome's past inspired its art centuries later. Tapestries, too, play an important role. Woven with meticulous care, they depict military triumphs, divine interventions, and legendary tales, often incorporating gold and silver threads that shimmer in the museum's soft light. These pieces were not merely decorative, they were symbols of power, wealth, and cultural sophistication, adorning palaces, churches, and public halls. Coins, medals, and smaller artifacts complement the paintings, offering insight into everyday life and political power. They remind visitors that Rome was not only a city of gods and emperors, but a living, breathing society with trade, commerce, and civic pride. Together, the paintings, tapestries, and smaller works expand the narrative of the Capitoline Museums. They show that Rome's story is not just monumental, it is also human, expressive, and endlessly creative. The walls here do more than display art. They illuminate the ideas, emotions, and ideals that have shaped one of the greatest civilizations in history. Walking through these galleries, you sense the continuity of Rome itself, a city where marble and paint, legend and history, coexist in perfect harmony. It is a reminder that the Capitoline Museums are not just a collection of objects, but a living, breathing chronicle of culture and memory. Step outside the museum buildings, and you are greeted by one of the most breathtaking panoramas in all of Rome, the view from the terrace of the Capitoline Museums overlooking the Roman Forum. From this vantage point, history unfolds beneath your eyes like an ancient tapestry, a city frozen in time, yet still alive with echoes of the past. Below, the Forum stretches out a complex of temples, basilicas, arches, and columns, many of them crumbling yet imbued with extraordinary presence. Here, emperors once addressed their people, senators debated laws that shaped the empire, triumphal processions marched along the Via Sacra, filling the streets with the sounds of victory and celebration. Each ruin tells a story. The Temple of Saturn, with its tall, weathered columns, hints at the wealth and ceremonial rituals of early Rome. The Arch of Septimius Severus stands as a testament to military triumphs and the desire of rulers to immortalize themselves in stone. Even the scattered fragments of once magnificent temples and public buildings speak of power, ambition, and the passage of centuries. Looking out over this landscape, it is impossible not to feel a connection to the people who built it. You can almost hear the footsteps of citizens, soldiers, and priests echoing across the marble pavements. Feel the weight of history pressing gently against the present. From this terrace, the Capitoline Museums do more than display artifacts. They frame the entire city as a living museum, linking the art inside their halls to the real, tangible remains of Rome's imperial past. It is a view that embodies the genius of the Capitoline vision. The city itself becomes part of the collection. The ancient ruins below, the Renaissance architecture surrounding you, and the bronze and marble masterpieces inside the museums all coexist in a dialogue across time. To stand here is to understand why the Capitoline Museums are more than a place to see art. They are a place to see history itself, to witness centuries compressed into a single, unforgettable panorama, where the past is never far away and the present feels inseparable from the echoes of antiquity. The Capitoline Museums are more than a collection of statues, paintings, and inscriptions. They are a symbol of civic pride, a testament to the enduring idea that culture, knowledge, and beauty belong not to a select few, but to all people. From the moment Pope Sixtus IV opened the first collection of bronzes to the public, the museum embodied a revolutionary principle. Heritage is a shared treasure. Art was no longer confined to palaces or churches, hidden behind locked doors. It was available for anyone who climbed the hill, eager to witness the legacy of Rome for themselves. Over the centuries, this idea has remained central to the Capitoline Museum's identity. Every new acquisition, from ancient coins and sculptures to Renaissance paintings and tapestries, has been carefully preserved for public education and enjoyment. Visitors, scholars, and citizens alike can explore the halls, learn the stories behind each artifact, and connect directly with the past. In this sense, the museums continue the democratic spirit that Rome itself aspired to in its golden age. Just as the Senate once debated the fate of the empire in the forum below, now the people, ordinary citizens, tourists, and students, come here to witness and interpret the legacy of those who came before. The Capitoline Museums transform history into a shared experience, a dialogue across generations. Every sculpture, painting, and inscription tells a story, not just of emperors or gods, but of humanity itself. The She-Wolf watching over Romulus and Remus, the Dying Gaul enduring his final moments, the Colossal Head of Constantine gazing eternally upward, all are reminders of courage, resilience, and vision. They invite us to reflect not only on the grandeur of Rome, but also on the responsibility to preserve and share culture. In this way, the Capitoline Museums are not just a repository of objects. They are a living symbol of Rome, of civilization, and of the enduring idea that history and art belong to everyone. Today, the Capitoline Museums continue to captivate millions of visitors from around the world, drawing people who wish to witness firsthand the story of one of history's greatest cities. But the museum is more than a tourist destination. It is a living bridge between past and present, a place where the lessons of antiquity resonate in modern life. Each gallery, each statue, each painting carries a fragment of Rome's identity. From the She-Wolf that nurtured the city's founders, to the Dying Gaul whose courage transcends time, to the Colossal Head of Constantine staring eternally toward the heavens, these works are not mere relics. They are voices of the past, speaking across centuries to anyone who will listen. The Capitoline Museums remind us that Rome is not simply an archaeological site or a collection of ruins. It is an idea, a civilization, and a story that continues to shape the world. Through the preservation of its art, culture, and history, the museums ensure that the spirit of Rome, its resilience, ingenuity, and creativity remains alive for generations to come. And as we walk through the halls, wander the piazza, and gaze out over the Roman Forum, it becomes clear that the Capitoline Museums are not just a place to see history, they are a place to experience it. They allow us to step into the minds of emperors, artists, and citizens, to feel their ambitions, their triumphs, and their struggles. In doing so, they connect us to a past that is both distant and intimately human, a past that continues to shape who we are today. The legacy of the Capitoline Museums is eternal because the stories they hold are eternal. Rome's art, history, and culture live on here, not as static objects in glass cases, but as a continuing dialogue between the ancient and the modern, the powerful and the ordinary, the past and the present. To visit the Capitoline Museums is to touch the heartbeat of a civilization that has never truly ended.